Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is What If Deku was OP and can edit quirks part 4. I am recording this 1 AM in the morning for me, which is absolutely fantastic, because I completely forgot that I have stuff on tomorrow, and I want to get a video out today, which is technically tomorrow, but we move. Yeah, if you can't tell, that's become my new favourite phrase anyway. Thanks for watching, thanks for all the... No, thanks if you are here. There we go. And, like and subscribe helps me out a bunch, and thanks for all the support I've been getting recently, and just in general, absolutely fantastic. So, into the story. Just to iron things out, I said a couple of months, but I never really said how many months it's been. So it's been 4 months, and Melissa is literally one step off finishing this robot. So, after the explosion, they all recover quickly, and they find out about Deku's quirk, but Melissa promised not to say anything, and that is when Melissa literally, she goes and starts working on the robot straight away. Deku's like, no, don't you dare work on that robot, and Melissa's like, it's fine, I made one mistake, and either way you can heal me, can't you? And they flirt around a bit, they play around a bit, you know. Yeah. Can't believe I just said that out loud. We move. Okay, sorry. Anyway, so it has been 4 months, and this incident happened 4 months into the inventors thing. So Deku helps out a bit with the invention. And what is this Deku's gift? What is it? Because it's finished the day after the incident. So what is the gift? Well, the gift is a robot. Now you may be asking, why would Deku want a robot? Well, what this robot is, it's kind of like a sparring partner for Deku. So Deku can work on basically training and all that. Now that Melissa knows that he can edit quirks as well, Melissa thinks, oh, and Deku basically tells her almost everything, like how one day he'll be able to create quirks, and Melissa's like, oh, well, this robot's pretty much perfect for you, so I'm such good at giving gifts, and that's when Deku's like, maybe I can give a gift too. So, I also said something about Melissa's quirk. What Melissa's quirk is, it's a slight increase in cognitive ability. That's just a fancy way of saying she's slightly smarter than the average person. So, what has Deku done to basically edit her quirk? Oh, someone's in the back. Right, so what has Deku basically done to edit Melissa's quirk is he's done a branch off quirk, which has a branch off to a quirk which literally has nothing to do with her increased cognitive ability, and instead makes her live a little. Well, it's like dormant immortality, so it's not full on immortality, but what it's doing, it means she ages 4 times slower, and this is so basically she can live longer. And that's when Deku actually does this to himself, uh, cling on this edit quirk to his regenerative ability. So it's like a string on part of his quirk that he lives 4 times as long. And he doesn't tell Melissa he adds this quirk, but he does ask her. Well, no, he does tell her Melissa he's added this quirk to her. But what he says, he asks her about it first and whether she wants it, and then she's like, yeah, that'll be nice. And so basically, they both take on this dormant immortality quirk, I'm gonna call it. Anyway, so Deku trains with the robot, and that's when the energy kicks in again, and it creates another quirk for him. This is just the system working by itself, and this time Deku starts to kind of get a hold and the grasp of the system and how to create quirks. So what I'm saying is Deku's becoming OP. So he's been training with the robot for a month now, so he's 5 months in, and what's this new quirk? Well, this new quirk that he's developed, by the way, this is all in between his inventor's studies, though he's kind of not focused on his inventor's studies and has bad grades, which, well, he has, like, middle-of-the-road grades, not like Melissa, who has really high-end grades, and the reason she has such high-end grades is because she's motivated by Deku due to Deku being there and supporting her becoming an inventor. So basically, they're both being motivated by each other. But Deku's middle of the range inventor's grades, Melissa's really high inventor's grades. But after school, they've trained with the robot. Melissa helps Deku train, watches over him, makes sure he's okay, and controls the robot, see what settings it on, pushes up the settings, pushes down the settings. This is all after school, and they're a month in, and that's when Deku feels the energy again, and the system has created another quirk for him. And what this quirk is, it's a simple strength quirk, but Deku edits this and makes him to be able. So the simple strength quirk increases his strength by quite a bit, but then he edits it to be able to increase it tenfold. But the drawback of increasing it is that it's a dramatic speed loss. Though this is kind of like this only kicks in really at later levels, like 100 times, which has the power to destroy the city, because it's not like scale factor, if that makes sense. It's not 100 times his base strength. It's just called 100 times, and I'm sorry I read that wrong. It's 1,000 times, which is able to destroy a city. So, yeah, but Deku's not able to test this out. It's just kind of predictions and Melissa's predictions because they've read the energy he gives off. The reason he's not able to try it out because they're scared of the effect it might have on Island. And Deku has finally got a grasp on the creation side of his quirk. So he messes around with it a bit more, and this is where I'm gonna skip to another 3 more months. So he's 8 months in total, and that's when he can that's when he gets he's learned to create a quirk all by himself. As for the robot, now he can easily defeat it even on max strength, which max strength is like an average villain. It's not like a high level villain, it's like an average villain. He can defeat that easily, especially with his second quirk, which is a speed quirk. This is just a basic speed quirk, other than the fact it doesn't just increase his speed dramatically, it increases his ability to percept his surroundings. So he can activate this speed quirk and look quicker, see quicker, and the messages in his brain transfer quicker. So if he picked up a pot with the speed quirk activated and the pot was boiling hot, he'd be able to drop it quicker than a normal human, all the base, everything's quicker. You can read books quicker and all that, though the drawback is loss of power, and it does take a lot of mental strain when he's doing, let's say, reading a book, because he's taking in all the information at once. So it's better to read a book normally than it is to read it in this speed quirk form. There's not really a full name for this, so I'm just going to call it speed. No, I'll call it, I'll call it speed. And this kind of activates pretty much naturally to Deku, and it's kind of like a reaction, but you can activate it, like force activate it, and that's when he can fight with it. But the drawback is he loses power, and this is a big drawback because it kind of makes him vulnerable when he's in his speed form. Anyway, so another month goes by and he's in the 9th month, and that's when he learns one more thing, and that's it's easier to create a quirk if it's in his ancestry. So what he does is he creates an ice quirk like his father. So he does this by tapping into his ancestry and creating this quirk. And now you may ask, what's different between this quirk and his father's quirk? Well, his father had a really quite powerful ice quirk, but where Deku's differ is he's able to make certain things with it, and it also has a sense of telekinesis. So, for example, he'll be able to make a block of ice and have it float in the air, breaking quote-unquote the laws of physics, as what his dad would do. When he makes a block of ice in the air, it'll fall straight away, and Deku can also make it fall. So it's kind of like ice telekinesis. He also has perfect control over the ice. being able to make a sword. And the drawback is that the ice can hurt him, first of all, so he can be stabbed by his own ice. And the second drawback is it takes stamina, quite a bit of stamina, but not like a terrible amount. But it means that if he uses his ice quirk, it gets harder to use his regenerative quirk, which he still can't use on himself, and that's because the system is limiting him to kind of, well, the only reason it's limiting him is because the amount of energy it uses is harmful to Deku. That's why it needs two parties. So you know, because it uses energy from two parties, it's not as dangerous. But if Deku was using it on just himself, it would be dangerous because of the amount of energy it just consumes of Deku alone. If that makes sense. If not, yet again, comment if you're listening. Yeah, just drop a comment and I'll fully explain it. Anyway, so just let me switch back to my older notes. Deku gets sent home because it is the end, because it took him a whole month. He created the ice quirk in the 9th month. It took him the whole month to get a grasp of this powers and basically learn the powers. So he's going to be sent home. But on the last day, Melissa asks him to basically go on a quote-unquote friendship date thing. It's like just a day out together where they're not focusing on quirks and just having a nice look around, because there is a cinema on Island and there is a food place, so they go around, they have a nice look around, and that's when give me a sec, sorry about this. So they have a little date, they go to the cinema like I previously mentioned, and that's when Melissa makes a move and kisses Deku and says, "Don't forget me when you go to back to Japan. I'm sorry I can't follow you." And Deku goes home. He's greeted off by Melissa and Professor Shield the next day. Of course, Professor Shield is busy this whole time and actually isn't able to follow Deku to the airport with Melissa because he's working on some for All Might. This is, of course, if you've not seen the movie, it's of course the thing to do with the movie, like the quirk enhancer. Professor Shield is working on that for All Might. So Deku gets home. He gets home and he's greeted by his family. And that's when he says straight up to his father, "Dad, I've become a lot of confident recently and I've been training a lot. I want to try the hero course as well as the inventor's course for UA. Is that okay?" And then his face lights up and says, "Well, son, you can try and I will support you all the way." So, this is happening in the next week or so, right? So, just be ready and get training. So, sorry for saying so many times. So Deku gets home, he rests a bit, and he has a week of training. He goes to some secluded place on the some secluded place near the home. It's a beach where trash has been thrown everywhere, and he uses the trash as kind of a barrier to hide as he practices his ice quirk a little bit more, practicing some unique moves we will see in the UA exam, which is going to be happening right now. So Deku, he's walking into the UA exam, and one person is keeping a special eye on him right now. That is the one, the only All Might. All Might looks to be angry. He looks to be full of anger towards Deku, of all people. Now, this is confusing because, it's Deku. Deku's the hero, the protagonist. Well, All Might is ready to fight Deku. He's well pissed off, and no one really knows why. Or do we? Can you figure it out? Of course, I'm going to tell you in this part. I think it's going to go a little over the 15-minute mark, but that's fine. It's not like I got anything important on tomorrow. But let's get back on track. Let's focus. So, the UA exam happens. Deku walks in. That's when he trips up. And he trips up. This is when his speed analysis starts working, but Deku doesn't want to use any of his other quirks to save himself, so he's just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to accept the fall. This is because he doesn't want to get told off for using his quirk, because of course, unlike Island, he can't use his quirk without breaking the law, because that's the law. Unlike Island, doesn't quite have that law, if you remember, because of the security on the island. And I've just thought, have I stopped recording and started recording again? Or is that just that time of day? We'll risk it. We'll risk it for the biscuit. You know what they say. I really hope I've got this in, because it means... Back on track. So Deku gets saved by... his speed quirk activates. He realizes he could react, but he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna take one for the team and fall. And that's when he's actually saved by a girl. He says, oh, thank you. So what's your name? And she responds, Uraka. The reason Deku's not freaking out is because he's just spent a whole 10 months with a girl. That girl being Melissa, who ended up kissing him. That did freak him out, but you know what? We move. It didn't freak him out. It just made him really nervous because it was the first time he's been kissed by a girl. But just to iron things out, so he's not nervous this time. He talks to Raka quite confidently, and then he's like, "Oh, do you want to walk into the UA exam together?" After he finds out that she is also taking the Hero UA exam, and her name is Uraka. They then walk into the exam together, and that is when he starts to think in his brain about the whole UA exam. And Uraka looks over and like, oh my god, he's very concentrated, because of course it's him, Uraka, and Bakugo. But this time Bakugo doesn't hold that much anger towards Deku, because, he holds some anger, but there's not much anger yet, because Deku isn't shown to be quite powerful or have a quirk or anything. But there's anger because Deku's taking the UA exam and he's feels that's kind of rude, but Bakugo thinks in his head, haha, the puny fool is just being forced to take this by his parents, blah 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 blah. Anyway, let's get a move on. So Deku's in UA exam. Ida doesn't talk to Deku this time because Deku wasn't muttering, due to Deku being more composed with himself after fighting the robots. He's not quite as nervous, blah 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 blah. 3, 2, 1, the bell gets President Mike tells everybody to go. This time Deku goes straight away, activating his speed quirk on a low level, so his stamina isn't drained, or his power isn't drained too much. By power drained, I mean when he's using his speed quirk, he has a lower strength output than when he's not using his speed quirk, which it's kind of weird because force times power equals because of laws, so the faster you go is the harder you punch, but this will cause backlash on Deku's arms, so he could theoretically run as fast as he can and punch and do a lot of damage, but of course the backlash on his hands would be unreal because he's got nothing to protect him, blah 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 blah. I hope that makes sense. If I'm not making sense, just yet again ask me in the comments and I'll explain any question when I have the time to. So, back on track. Deku runs up to the first 1 pointer robot and he uses his strength quirk at we'll go 100 times multiplier to completely annihilate it. This wrecks the robot completely, taking it out and actually almost taking out 3 robots behind it. These were all 1-pointers. That's when Deku's like, okay, maybe I need to call back a bit, so he decides to use 50 times. This is of course lowering it and increasing it when he's fighting a robot again to save energy, and also to save speed, because of the drawback being if he uses the quirk he loses speed, but it's not too noticeable. So Deku takes out all these robots and he racks up the most amount of points, more than Bakugo even, because of the amount of speed and the efficiency he is taking out these robots. All Might is looking from the outside of the arena and he looks really annoyed at Deku. That is when Deku sees Uraka and sees that she's in danger. Realizes it's the girl he was talking to before and the girl he walked into the exam, and he wants to become friends with this girl because she's quite nice. So he goes in and he saves her. How does he do this, you may ask? Well, literally all he does is he uses his strength quirk to rip into the robot at 50% and climb up the robot's arm, ripping off the armor as he climbs up, like ripping his hands into the armor and kind of using it as a ladder, I guess you could say. And he just walks up to the robot's face and uses 100 times smash, and this completely annihilates the robot. Deku then falls to the ground and realizes that he's going to have to stop himself, but then he also realizes that Uraka is going out to save him, so he just lets Uraka save him as he lands carefully on the ground and Uraka's there throwing up. That is when All Might can no longer keep in his anger, and he smashes through the viewing window, if you remember where that is, and charges at Deku. He then screams, "I know who you're working for," and punches at Deku, thinking that Deku's basically trying to be a spy for All For One. All Might continues punches, even though he's tired from working as a hero beforehand, before the exam. Deku realizes All Might is tired. He then says, "I refuse to fight you," and All Might keeps on punching. Deku uses his speed quirk to run away from these punches, but is blown away into some rubble from the amount of air pressure coming from these punches. All Might isn't holding back. All Might then says, "Detroit, smash!" And Deku quickly picks himself up and uses the ice quirk to create a shield barrier. This cracks as the ice goes everywhere. The ice is pushed into Deku and heads towards Uraka. Deku dodges the ice near him, but realizes he's going to have to jump into the way of the ice shards going towards Uraka if he doesn't want her to be hurt. All Might is too blind and angry to realize that he's putting students in danger. This is really out of character for All Might, but All Might thinks Deku's a part of All For One, and his anger is filling him as he spent these 10 months alone, angry with his pent-up anger building up at Deku as he thinks he's All For One's predecessor, and as he blames Deku for everything bad that he thinks is going to happen because of his predecessor dying to All For One. Of course, he's got no one to protect, and he's got nothing to lose, and he's had no one to basically calm down his anger like Deku was in the anime. This causes All Might to be very angry and just continue relentlessly wanting to hurt Deku this whole entire time, blaming him for his predecessor's death and blaming him for trying to fool the UA system. This of course means that Deku's gonna have to jump in front of the ice, which he does without a thought because Uraka saved him twice already. The ice goes into Deku's body. Luckily, it dodges all his vital organs, but it does cause him to bleed a bit. Deku starts bleeding out, but luckily he can pick himself back up, which is then when All Might swings again at him, going, "Detroit, smash!" Deku blocks it by covering himself into a ball of ice. The ice starts cracking as All Might relentlessly pounds on it at 100% with his face full of anger. That is when Deku decides that he has to help All Might. He first of all makes sure that everybody gets out of the area, making sure to tell Uraka to go through hand signals and face signals, pointing her to the exit. Uraka eventually gets out of there as All Might keeps on relentlessly pounding at this ice shield, which has Deku behind it. That is when he lets the shield melt and he activates 150 times. He catches one of All Might's weakened punches. This is weakened because All Might shouldn't be able to be in his one for all form, but he is in it anyway out of anger of Deku. And the reason he shouldn't be in it. Okay, just dropped something. But the reason he shouldn't be in it is because he's been saving people before then, so him being in it is actually really bad. So Deku basically uses 150 times to hit All Might. This causes him to go into Small Might form straight away, and he uses his ice to make a big cover of thick, unseeable ice. So All Might's Small Might form is hidden within the ice cube. That is when he then uses regeneration, and though he's bleeding out himself, it didn't hit anything vital, and Deku knows that because he realizes that he's not gonna die from bleeding out. So what he does instead is Deku uses his regeneration quirk on All Might. This, of course, drains both of their energy an extreme amount, and what Deku is actually doing is he is using his regeneration quirk to heal his permanent injury. All Might starts coming back to it, realizing what Deku is doing, and that's when he realizes Deku's using up his energy. All Might is then he's kind of like coming back to his senses, no longer in the anger-filled state like he was before, after attacking, and he then starts regretting what he's done. That is when both him and Deku pass out, but the regenerative energy starts covering Deku's body again. What it's doing is a hidden quirk has been activated. Now, this quirk hasn't been mentioned before because not even Deku knows about it himself, and he still goes on not to know about it. And what I'm calling it is godly or divine protection. And basically, what's happening in his body is being covered in that regeneration energy, and any injuries on his own body is being repaired. Any injuries on All Might's body is being repaired. Even the injuries that were meant to be permanent are being repaired, like he was working on before, but now they're fully repaired. And this causes Deku to use quite a bit of this causes Deku to not use energy, and that's because it's instead using the god's energy, and that's because the god that granted in this quirk has been, well, I want to say woken up, but he's basically when he gave Deku the quirk, he set some energy aside that was locked behind a good deed, and this is what the divine protection is, and this is being used up now, so it can't be used again unless the god wakes up, which he won't be because that's a part of the deal. But what this divine protection is doing is it's protecting Deku because he did a good deed, and the god's basically been a good god, I guess you could say. But this is a one-time use thing and cannot be used again. But what it's done, it's fully healed All Might and fully healed Deku. But they're still both passed out. Deku comes to it about half a day later, so it's now the middle of the night. He is told that he's passed the UA exam by the pupil because of the amount of power he's the amount of power that he's shown against fighting All Might. Now it's time to explain why All Might was so angry, and they say it's because someone has actually broken in and created some sort of aura with their quirk, and this is an anger aura. Now this is a new villain I've added to the story, and we'll find out more about him later down the storyline, but we just know that he broke into he didn't break into UA, sorry. He tainted All Might with his anger back when he fought the slime monster, because he was somewhat behind the slime monster attacking civilians like it did. So basically he was behind the slime monster and behind All Might's pent up anger and why he fought everybody. All Might is feeling really bad, and he's basically told by everybody that what he did isn't his fault, and but All Might still feels like it's his fault anyway. So he comes into Deku's room after he comes to, and that's how he's told about him making it into UA, and that's when All Might follows it up by, "Oh yeah, and I forgot to say, thank you for saving me, Deku. You don't understand, but I remember you jumping in front of the ice. As a hero, I should have done the same, but as you know, I wasn't thinking straight. Anyway, I no longer feel worthy for this quirk. Well, no. It's not that I don't feel worthy, it's that I feel like, even though you've healed me, my time with the quirk is running out, and I feel like I should pass it on. Now, I've already offered it to somebody else, but they refused, and now I'm starting to see why they did. It's because fate has already decided who the owner of this quirk should be, and Deku, well, no, he calls him young Midoriya, and young Midoriya, I think the owner of my quirk should be you. That is when Deku's like, whoa, wait, what? What about quirks and owning quirks and what? And that is when All Might fills him in about One for All and how he can pass on the quirk. And that is also when he says, "Anyway, I feel like you're worthy enough for this quirk, and I can tell you're not with One for All. All for One. If you was, you wouldn't have healed me, the owner of One for All. So that's why I'm asking you whether you want my quirk. Now, I've realised that you're not normal, are you? You're some sort of prodigy. So whether you can use this quirk for the greater good and make it stronger to take out all for one, it doesn't really matter. But the spirits within the quirk are telling me to pass it on to you. So Deku, I'm going to ask you this from the bottom of my heart. I'm pretty much begging you here. Will you take One for All? This is, of course, where I'm going to end this episode because what a great cliffhanger. Now, I want to say sorry about the shambles. It's been a bit of a mess this episode, and that's because I've been stopping and starting. But hopefully, it can somewhat fix itself somehow. So tell me if you enjoyed it or not, because that helps me out a bunch. Anyway, thanks for watching this longer-ish episode. You're a great audience, and goodbye.